Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 871. 871. August the 18th, 2019, Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well, on today's video, don't forget to get in your vote for Dumbass of the Week. Dumbass of the Week on today's video. Put that in the comments section of this video, and tomorrow we will announce the winner. Of course, it's been a pretty good week. A lot of contestants, a lot of good entries, and I'm sure it will be a close competition. I'm looking forward to tallying up the votes and seeing who's going to be this week's champion. Now, I'm going to spend most of today's video following up on a story by Jeff Carlson where we've had the Bruce Orr 302's out now for about 2 weeks. Thanks to Judicial Watch, and we've had throughout the last 2 weeks we've covered bits and pieces, a few things here, a few things there. So what we're going to do today is following up with Jeff Carlson's article where he basically goes and looks at the totality of all the things that we did learn from the Bruce Orr 302's. So we can get a real clear perspective as opposed to just a few things here and there. We're going to go down pretty much through the laundry list of all the things that were exposed from the Bruce Orr 302's, not just from what was in the Bruce Orr 302's themselves, but because it filled in some gaps from some other things that we had thought we knew but we had no evidence of, that we now have evidence of, and some other things that were kind of confirmed by things in the 302's from Bruce Orr. So that's going to be what we're going to spend most of the video on, but we'll go through some of the basic news of the last 24 hours and get the news headlines out of the way. Then we'll jump right into these revelations from the Bruce Orr 302's, which are well worth paying attention to, because it's it really, I mean, in a lot of ways, these 302's, in a lot of ways, not well, obviously, heavily incriminates Bruce and Nellie, obviously, and Glenn Simpson. But it also sort of removes any doubt that Obama, the White House, was instrumental in the plot, both the prior to the to Trump winning the election, being involved in the plot to stop him from winning the election, and then afterwards we can see clear evidence now from the 302's, from Bruce Orr's 302's, that the Obama administration, the White House, was involved in all aspects, everything from trying to stop Trump to the coup. And that's what I think is most important. But we're going to go through it all here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. And again, don't forget your vote in today's video in the comments section for your pick for Dumbass of the Week. Well, in the last 24 hours, excuse me, in the last 24 hours, it has become painfully obvious to the demo commies that Joe Biden is a no-go. He is a no-go. And, of course, I told them, for those of you who've been watching my videos, you know that even before Biden officially announced, I said, it's not going to work. Biden, there's no way. The only thing he can do is embarrass himself. It's not going to fly. He's not going to make it. I've been saying this whole time. People keep saying, well, he's a front runner. He's almost a lock. There's no one else that can take out Creepy Joe. He occupies the center spot. Everyone else is too far to the left. He's the de facto nominee. He's got the name recognition. He was Obama's VP. He's going to be the nominee. And I've been saying for weeks and weeks, well, months and months now, that there's no way. He cannot make it. It is not possible. You cannot. There's nothing you can do to save Creepy Uncle Joe. What, and the idea that they're just going to take him off the campaign trail and try the Rose Garden strategy, it's not going to work. He will only lose even more points against his opponents who will be out there. And he's still got at least one more debate to go through, and the primaries are a long way off. There's no way he can make it. He's just not going to get it done. I've been, and really, in all, his family should step in and put an end to this right now. They should put in and put a stop to it. Because, I mean, in all seriousness, the only thing that can happen from this point forward is he is going to be really embarrassed. I mean, he's going to have no dignity left if he sticks around. I mean, he is literally going to be embarrassed beyond, I mean, it's going to be embarrassing for his family, for his friends, for him. It's just not going to work. And you are starting to see stories now coming out, which tells me that the Rotten Reverend Clinton is beginning the plan to start pushing him out, and they'll start trying to give him the soft nudge at first. If he's resistant, they'll push harder, and they'll push harder. But I'm almost certain that the Rotten Reverend Clinton wants Biden out by the end of September, because I think she wants to be drafted in October. And so I think this is her sort of 6 to 8 weeks out push to get Biden out, because now we're seeing various newspapers, the Washington Post, New York Times now all had stories this week. Politico, you're seeing them talk about it now on CNN, MSNBC. You're seeing a lot of left-wing pundits out there saying, yeah, Uncle Joe's not going to make it. It's time to start thinking about something else. And so this is what I've been telling them for a very long time, and they did not want to listen. But again, we had the story that came out from the New York Times just about 24 hours ago, where they write in the Times piece that Obama told Biden that he didn't have to run in 2020. And of course that tells us why, and of course I think we knew why Obama had never endorsed Biden, because he does not endorse Biden. And we also learned from this story that Obama told Biden's campaign staff not to let him embarrass himself or damage his, meaning Obama's, legacy. Obama's worried about his legacy, and he knows that if right now it's Creepy Joe out there trying to run on Obama's legacy, which is being destroyed by Biden and these far leftists who don't think Obama was a very good president. He wasn't far enough to the left. He wasn't progressive enough. And so Obama sees his legacy being destroyed by his former VP and people on the far left. And I think Obama wants to remove himself from this far left wing. Not that he doesn't support him or agree with him. He just doesn't want to be associated with the disaster that he knows that will befall them if they continue to press this agenda, which they will. So, the New York Times has had this information probably for months and months and months. They've got a lot more too, believe me, that they've been sitting on. And the Rotten Reverend Clinton has it all. I'm telling you, we are seeing the beginning of the push. They're giving the soft push to send the message to Uncle Joe to get out. And if he resists, they'll push harder. And if they have to go down the China road, they will. If they have to go down the Ukraine road, they will. And if the Rotten Reverend Clinton has to drop a hit piece on his kid and his dealings, she'll do that as well. They'll do whatever they have to do. I think they want him gone by the end of September. I think they want the draft Hillary campaign to be in full steam ahead by the beginning of October. There is a filing deadline. Typically, it can be waived by the party, but typically they have kind of a soft deadline for November 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th, 1 year from the election. So I think that this is a strategy. I've been talking about it now for months, and I think we're seeing the beginnings of that strategy taking place. And there's one other thing that a lot of people who really don't want to talk about it publicly, but they are quite aware of it within the big Democratic donors and people who are in the know. Certainly the folks over at Lawfare Blog know about all this. They know that prior to the 2020 election in November 2020, sometime prior to that, Barr and Durham are going to finish their investigation. And that investigation is going to show the White House, Obama White House, the Obama administration was involved in some very underhanded dealings to try to stop Trump from being elected, and then after he won the presidency, they were involved in this coup. Whether or not they take it all the way up to the Obama and his administration, and as far as criminal allegations, or whether it just looks bad, we don't exactly know at this time. But we know at the very least that when Barr and Durham get done with their investigation, it is going to be widely known that the Obama administration was involved in some pretty nasty business during 2016, 2017, and up until, even 2018. So this is all going to be out there. And we know, and it's going to be widely publicized, it'll be in the documents, it'll be in the reports, it'll be in the information we get from Barr and Durham, that Biden was certainly aware of all of this. We know he was in that meeting on January 6th, 2017, when they got together and said, okay, well, looks like Trump's going to be inaugurated here in about 2 weeks. What's the plan going forward? How are we going to take this guy out? We failed to defeat him. Now he's coming into office. What is the plan moving forward after we leave and he comes in? How are we going to get rid of him? And Biden was in that meeting. Biden knows all about it. He's going to be hit with these questions. When this all comes out, we don't know when that'll be, whether it will be in a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, but most likely, I would say almost certainly, before the 2020 vote, Barr and Durham are going to be done with their investigation, and they're going to make a report, and Biden is going to have a lot of questions to answer if he is the face, because Obama will disappear. I mean, he'll be gone. He'll be vacationing when he knows the shit's going to hit the fan and he gets word that the report's coming out and it's very incriminating. He will get out of the country. He will be avoiding the media. But Biden is the Democratic nominee and he's right in the middle of a presidential campaign or late in the primary season, and this all comes out, he is going to have one hell of a time fielding questions about what he knew and when he knew it. So I'm telling you, if you are a friend, a family member of Creepy Uncle Joe, get out. Tell Joe to get out. It's going to get much, much worse. Okay. It looks like all three of Epstein's lawyers are challenging the autopsy report, along with every other sane person on the planet. We also are hearing that the prison staff are refusing to cooperate with investigators. We are also hearing that Epstein had paid inmates around him not to attack him. Epstein had his lawyers deposit money into the inmates' commissary accounts to avoid being targeted by them. Doesn't look good, does it? Yes, the general consensus is, whether it's from the left, from the right, the proclamation that this was a death by suicide, that official explanation did not seem to move the needle either way. I think most of the people who believe the official story, believe he did commit suicide, will still believe it, and most of those who question it still question it. I don't think it had any impact on the way anybody thinks or believes at this point. Certainly not me. I fully expected this. I didn't expect that they were going to come out and say, yeah, well, we think he was murdered. No, that wasn't going to happen. There's a lot going on with this, man. This guy had the goods on some very, very powerful people. Big enough players that he probably could have given up some people, a lot of people probably whose names we've never even heard of. He probably could have given these people up, and he probably could have gotten himself possibly out of jail and into the witness protection program. We've cut some deals with some pretty nasty characters before. It's depending on who you can give up. He's a big fish, so he would have had to have given up some really big fish. But my guess is he probably could have. There's probably some names. He's probably got video. He's probably got things buried or put away someplace where no one knows where it's at. He probably could have and likely would have cooperated. And I think that's the overlying feature of this whole thing for me, is that that's why I don't buy the suicide thing, because he wasn't going to spend the rest of his life in that situation. He had two legal options available to him at that time. Both of them had a reasonably good chance of success. He certainly, I think, could have gotten himself out of it, and at least ways something much, much better than his death. And it doesn't make sense to me that if he were going to commit suicide, I would have accepted it if he had gone through the legal process and had lost at every turn, and it was pretty obvious he was just going to be ended up being found guilty and spend the rest of his life in jail. Then maybe I would think, okay, then he would maybe commit suicide. But at this point, that hadn't been determined yet. He was still sitting pretty. He still had cards to play. He was still in the game. He takes himself out before he's even had the final verdict, when he's still got cards, good cards to play, and he's taken out. I'm just not buying it. Neither are many other people. Okay, it looks like Beto has got a new campaign strategy. It looks like the skateboarder, Bobby O, is not going to campaign in New Hampshire or Iowa. No, he's going to go to Mississippi. He's going to go to Mississippi. You know, that guy needs a checkup from the neck up. There's something wrong with him. I mean, he eats dirt. He feeds his family poop. This guy's nuts, okay? Flat out. This guy's nuts. Where's he sitting right now? Somewhere between 2 and 5% or something? This guy's a nut. So, yeah, I mean, that campaign strategy, I think Rudy actually tried that, where, you know, he skipped the first 2 primaries or something. Did not go well. It was like the worst. I mean, who would give you that campaign strategy? Skip the 2. I mean, if you don't place in the top 3 in the first 3 primaries, you're pretty much done. So his plan is not to go to the first 2 primary states. He's not going to go to New Hampshire. He's not going to go to Iowa. This guy's nuts. And he's stupid on top of that. And he's a Marxist. That's a 3 strikes you're out right there. Okay, more on this story that Sarah Carter has been working on for a very long time. We've covered it here from time to time on TowerGate when it pops up, but now it seems like it's kind of coming pretty close to its conclusion, and we're talking about this story about this individual, Adam Lovinger. Many of you will remember basically what happened. He was an auditor at the Department of Defense. He is the one who discovered the unusual payments being made to Stefan Halper. And in his effort to expose this, he fell under retribution and investigation. And in fact, they ended up pulling his security clearance, which meant he could not work at his job anymore. He essentially lost his job by getting his security clearance pulled. Therefore, he, got lawyered up, and began the legal process. Now, that legal process eventually ended up being investigated by the NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Well, as it turns out, we're finally learning that he was actually cleared by NCIS in 2018. They actually finished their investigation and they cleared him, but never informed his attorneys of that. And they've never done anything so that he could get his clearance back, so that he could get his job back. They've just let him hang. So he's sitting there losing money. He's lost his clearance. He can't work in the field that he's been working in. This is how he makes his living. He can't really do it without a clearance. So they've been basically keeping him sidelined. And this is a problem. This is a problem. You're not really allowed to do that. So now his attorneys have filed a complaint, a formal complaint with the DOD Inspector General. Whether how much trust we can put in the DOD Inspector General, I don't know. But they have filed a complaint. And I imagine, I would think that there'll be some kind of a civil lawsuit because, he's obviously lost money. And he's been put through hell. So Adam Lovinger has been cleared. He was cleared in 2018 by NCIS. And again, he's the one who pointed out the irregularities and peculiar nature of the payments made to Stefan Halper, who's now essentially admitted he was working for the government as an agent. He's trying to get out of his lawsuit, the defamation suit that's been filed against him by Lakova over in the UK. Or actually, that case was filed here. It was filed here by Svetlana Lakova. She's a UK citizen, but she filed the suit here. So we know that the NCIS put them into the rank of the deep state. Another government agency now that is clearly in the column of the deep state. I think it's all of them, by the way. Well, that genius Michael Moore has come out and said that the Squad is the Democrats' only hope at winning in 2020. He is freaking delusional. This dude is absolutely delusional. And I think he's going through like a transgender thing. He looks more and more like a woman every time I see him. An ugly woman, but at that. He looks like an armpit that eats. Now, Michael Moore, again, saying that the squad is the Democrats' only hope. If the Democrats believe, I don't know where they hang out or who they talk to or what groups they run around with, but clearly they don't come to the Midwest or go to the South or whatever very often, because I can assure you that throughout most of the country, with the exception of the coastlines, not many people are down with the squad's policy goals. I can assure you of that. So he's just insane. We're getting good news that Trump has the highest approval rating he's ever had. He's cracked 51%. This is from, I think it's a Zogby poll. He's also really doing well right now with blacks and Hispanics, the best numbers he's ever had. It's so good that even Dick Cheney is going to be stumping for Trump in Wyoming. Now that may be part of wanting to stick it in W's eye, because Cheney and W had a falling out after W refused to pardon Scooter Libby, who took the fall for Cheney's crimes. Now, let's get to these Bruce Orr 302's, the things that we learned. And these are really important, so let's go through these and consider these very carefully as I go through these bullet points. So, first of all, probably the overall thing that I personally got from reading the Bruce Orr 302's was that Bruce and Nellie are in deep shit. Deep kimchi, you might say. Very, very much so. They are definitely going to be facing some serious criminal liability. So we learn from the 302's that meetings between Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele were so frequent that Peter's Been Stroking Us tasked Agent Joe Pientka to be Orr's handler, Bruce Orr's handler, and to produce the 302's that we are now reading. We learn that Bruce Orr maintained contact with Christopher Steele all the way into November of 2017. That would be 1 year after the election. Now you have to ask yourself, why? If Steele was paid to do opposition research to stop Trump from winning the election, then why after the election would Orr and Steele, for a year after the election, would Orr and Steele still be cooperating and working with the FBI and the State Department and others to try to get this information out about Trump, which was all bullshit, as we know? Could only be because they were part of the coup. I mean, the election's over. Trump's won. But for another year after the election, they're still pushing this? Or is still meeting with Steele? Or is still talking to the FBI? And all these other government agencies? They were part of the coup. Glenn Simpson's name appeared 42 times in the Bruce Orr 302's. And from what we learn from some of the things in the Bruce Orr 302's, we know that Glenn Simpson clearly perjured himself in his testimony to Congress. We know that Orr told Pientka that he knew that Steele's reporting on Trump's ties to Russia were going to the Clinton campaign, Jonathan Weiner, and the State Department and the FBI. And keep in mind, Jonathan Weiner, at some point along there, I think it was 4 months after the election, I think it was 4 months after the election, like February, March, or April, Weiner actually left his official position from the State Department and was no longer a part of the government. Yet, he continued to be in the loop with people at the State Department, even though he was no longer an employee of the State Department. So that certainly has to be looked into. And you got to wonder why he was doing it. Who was paying him? Who was paying Weiner after he left the State Department to continue to be a player in this and to continue to meet with Steele and Orr? He arranged the meeting between Steele and Kvalik. There's a lot to be learned about the motivations and the activities of Jonathan Weiner. Jonathan Weiner had multiple meetings with Christopher Steele, according to Bruce Orr. Multiple meetings. Bruce Orr told Pientka that Simpson and others were talking directly to Victoria Nuland at the State Department. Well, that's a problem, because we saw Nuland interviewed 2 times on TV, and she was questioned by Congress. And she tries to give the impression that, oh, well, she had very little to do with any of this, that she had heard about it, and that she said, well, that's something for the FBI to deal with and let them handle it. She said that she received a two-page sort of version of the dossier, and she tries to play it off like she had very little to do with it. But certainly from the Bruce Orr 302's, we learned that she had a lot more going on, and that she actually got a full copy directly from Weiner. And we know that she was speaking to Simpson, Glenn Simpson, directly. In fact, there's even suggestion that they actually were at a meeting. They had dinner with some other people, and there were some other people who were also talking to Victoria Nuland, and that's not disclosed in the 302's. It just, Bruce Orr says that Simpson and other people were talking directly to Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland will have to answer some questions. And she is, of course, the Hillary Clinton acolyte. We have David Kramer. We learned that David Kramer met with Christopher Steele before the 2016 election, which means he lied. Not only did he lie to Congress, but he lied in both of his depositions. He was deposed twice, once in a case in England and a case in Florida, and in both those cases he lied about his contacts. He said they occurred after the election in December of 2016. We now know that David Kramer met with Steele before the 2016 election. And, of course, we know that he's the one who gave Victoria Nuland the final copy of the Steele, so-called Steele dossier. It was Kramer who passed that along to Victoria Nuland. So that means that Kramer was, this is the first time we see Kramer associated with Nuland. And keep in mind, David Kramer is working for Senator Magoo. He's Senator Magoo's right-hand man. He's this sort of Tully guy that does all of McCain's handwork. So that means McCain. Everything that Kramer was doing was either being directed by McCain or McCain was aware of. So that means McCain had a much bigger role in all of this than previously known. And he too had lied, because he had been asked, and he also said, oh, I just got the dossier, I just heard about it, I got it, and I passed it on to Comey. No. He was involved in it much sooner and knew a lot more than he let on. He was lying. The fact that he's dead means he'll probably get away with it, but it's going to be awfully embarrassing for his family and a lot of neocons when all this comes out in the final report. Orr told Joe Pientka that Simpson was providing Steele's information to many individuals and media outlets. So Orr is telling, and remember, as Orr is telling Joe Pientka all of this, it's going in the 302 reports, and Pientka's working for Peter's been stroking us. So it's going to Peter Strzok, he's passing it to McCabe, his boss, and then on to Comey. So keep in mind, all this stuff that we're talking about right now, the FBI knew before they went to the FISA court. Every bit of this. Yet think about what they told the FISA court. They didn't know that Steele was the source of the Isikoff piece. We know that's a flat-out lie. And they used that 3 times for all 3 of the renewals. I mean, many of these things were kept from the FISA court and the FISA application, and that's why all these people who signed off on the FISAs are likely going to be indicted. They didn't just mislead the FISA court. They blatantly lied to the FISA court. It's not they just omitted things to the FISA court. They said the opposite. They said to the best of their knowledge that Christopher Steele was not the source of the Isikoff article. That's what they told the FISA court, when they knew damn good and well he was. So Orr tells Pientka that Simpson was providing Steele's info to many individuals and media outlets. And, of course, keep in mind, Simpson is working directly for Hillary Clinton. Or told Pienta about Steele's meeting with Michael Isikoff. Yahoo News, that resulted in the September 23rd, 2016 article that said, quote, U.S. officials were investigating ties between Trump and the Kremlin. And that was used to get the FISA warrant 3 times. This proves that they knew, the FBI knew, that Steele was the source long before they went to the FISA court and told them that they had no idea, or that they believed that Steele was not the source, when they damn sure knew it. Because Orr had just told Pientka, who passed it on to his boss Strzok, who passed it on to McCabe. Certainly Comey knew about it. And keep in mind, Hillary tweeted 1 minute after the story broke. She tweeted the link. And then the very next day, after the Isikoff article comes out, Hillary for America issues a full-page press release touting the Isikoff bombshell report with the full article attached to the press release. Clearly set up. Clearly set up. Cooked up by the rotten Reverend and her stooges, her henchmen. Cooked the whole damn thing up. The whole thing was a setup. And they used Isikoff. And Strzok and Pientka and Page and McCabe all knew it. Every bit of it. And probably General Counsel Baker probably knew it. Rubicki probably knew it. The whole crew. The whole small group. Orr and Steele communicated through WhatsApp. We know that. Which means probably investigators are going to WhatsApp and probably getting into Steele and Orr and all these other guys and finding out who else was using WhatsApp and what they did. Now, that's encrypted, but if you're the FBI, you can probably get the key and the encryption key. And probably with the encryption key, you can then go back and look at it. So my guess is that if they haven't gone to WhatsApp at this point with a warrant, they certainly will be. If I'm Mr. Durham, I'm going to be at WhatsApp's door tomorrow with a warrant, to get the encryption key. Orr told Pientka that Simpson was directing Steele to speak to the media because that is what Simpson was paying Steele to do. Orr told Pientka that Simpson was directing Steele to speak to the media because that is what Simpson was paying Steele to do. Bingo! The launderer. Steele wasn't writing the freaking dossier. He was the salesman. The launderer. He was brought in to launder the intelligence. That's the only reason he was brought in. He didn't write a damn word of it. Just as I've been saying for a very long time. Wow. Bruce Orr told Pientka that Simpson told Steele to talk to David Corn of Mother Jones in a last-ditch Hail Mary attempt to sell the Trump-Russia narrative to the media. We know that Steele was providing his information to British intelligence officials. He briefed the heads of MI5 and MI6, Alex Younger and Andrew Parker, and they did brief Theresa May. Steele also met with Charles Farr, chair of Britain's Joint Intelligence Committee, on 2 occasions. He met with them in mid-November 2016 and at the end of November 2016, and this is what Steele told Kavalik to try to sell her on the authenticity of his work. We know that Orr told Pientka that Steele was desperate that Trump never get elected. We know that Orr continued meeting with Steele for more than a year after the election, even though the 302's stopped in May of 2017. Orr says he told the FBI about all of his meetings, yet the 302's stopped in May. But for another 7-8 months, he continued having the meetings. Okay, I am just about out of time. I'm going to stop right here. I still have more. So tomorrow, in tomorrow's video, we will pick up and get to the rest of the things we learned from the 302's. But so far, bombshell. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow for more TowerGate. Don't forget your picks for Dumbass of the Week. See you. Bye.